You're listening to Tech Talks, the new podcast from Broadcast Tech. My name is Jake Bickerton, and I'm the editor of Broadcast Sport and Broadcast Tech magazines. In this episode, I'm joined by Jigsaw24 Sales Director Rupert Watson and Rich Moss, Managing Director of Cardiff-based Post House Gorilla. We talk about how Gorilla has transitioned overnight from office-based to cloud-based remote home working during the pandemic. Richard starts off by talking about Gorilla's current use of inexpensive live streaming software, vMix.
We're using vMix now, and we're ISOing contributors' vision and sound, and we can play in items for them to react to.
I mean, that might be an interesting thing to touch on, because honestly, vMix, 4 weeks ago, not to be too arrogant, we wouldn't have touched it because you can't make any money selling it because it's
practically free.
And although we've got a few customers at the sort of lower end of the sort of spectrum who used it, we wouldn't have engaged with it. So I don't know what it means for production quality once we exit all this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been going that way for a little while, hasn't it, with all digital platforms? I think, as an industry, we always think everyone wants the best quality images and sound and stuff. But I think reality is people are quite happy.
Actually, Mark from Gallery, the one of the developers at Sienna, he put it best, I think, for me, was that when MP3 came out, you would have, prior to that, compressed audio, goodness me, no chance, but you sacrifice quality of convenience in certain instances, and the fact that I could walk around with my entire record collection in my pocket meant that I was happy to listen to it as an MP3 because of the convenience.
Well, it's the same as fixed rig, isn't it? Anything that suddenly has a use, or it enables you to be able to produce something for a budget that normally wouldn't have allowed it, suddenly it becomes useful.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun, actually, of innovating. I mean, to be honest, I've done more interesting stuff for the last 3 weeks than I've done in probably the last year. I've discovered stuff. I've talked to interesting people. I mean, I was looking at Deja Edit the other day. I don't know if you've seen that, Rich, but I think that's stunning. Really clever use of kind of Avid projects and remote editorial workflow.
What does it enable you to do?
So what they've done is they've created a structure within the Avid project that kind of effectively uses, if you like, post office box type of workflow. So you've got a kind of inbox set of bins and an outbox set of bins, and if you put them in the outbox, they synchronize with your, the person downstream from you, and if you put them in your kind of inbox, then they synchronize with the person upstream of you. So the DIT's got an outbox bin, and the assistant editor's got an inbox bin, and they're synchronizing, and all the data's actually, and I think in a Wasabi S3 bucket, which is synchronized with the rubber drive in Stockholm, and a rubber drive in Denmark, and a rubber drive in London. And if you delete your rubber drive or flush it down the loo, you get a new one, you plug it in, and it all synchronizes back down from the cloud again. So, and they've got a really tight workflow, and they've got some nice little bits of code working. It backs up the project to the cloud once every 2 hours and stuff.
Do you think that's the best solution so far? I mean, how does that compare to the Avid Edit on Demand?
What it means is, kind of Bob, the famous editor, can be sitting with his G-Tech or whatever local USB-C, USB 3 or Thunderbolt drive on his, home rig, connected via a reasonable connection to the internet. And so kind of in the initial stage, you've got the DIT on set who's able to transcode and deliver the media to the cloud or onto a drive locally, which will synchronize up. They've got a post office box kind of activity going back and forth between the director, as it might be, and the DIT, or between the editor and the set. So during shooting, they can do a quick rough cut, synchronize back and forth, have a look, see what you make of it. But then as things progress, you've got the kind of, I suppose, the inexpensivity of local drives, or the easy to understand and simplicity of that, but you've got the security of the cloud and the fact that you can fat finger an entire drive if you're a remote editor in your kind of barn in Norway or whatever, and as long as you've got time, it'll resync back down from the cloud, and as rushes are added, they synchronize quietly in the background and populate the media files folder. Whereas editorial on demand is all in the cloud. You've got a virtual machine, which is a media composer. You've got a virtual Nexus, which is in the cloud, and you've got to get your media up there to kind of work on it.
You're one of the first organisations to commercially deploy Avid on demand.
Mhm.
So what made you look at that, and what is it that is kind of most appealing? Presumably within the pandemic, it's kind of accelerated that move, has it?
Well, that was the interesting thing, really, because we were really looking into different remote options prior to the pandemic.
Right.
So timing-wise, it's just crazy. I mean, we started all of this kind of months before. So looking at the PC over IP, the amulets, your thin clients, remote desktops, and cloud solutions as well. What attracted us more to edit on demand was I think it's all part of a tool set that we can offer our clients, really. We're not looking for a solution that will replace everything, because every job, even during COVID now, is different. I think, as Rupert mentioned, you've got a craft scripted editor compared to 5 editors working on volume material with fast turnaround. Every instance of deployment is different. So the purely cloud deployment was something we just wanted to investigate. As a facility who owns a shed load of Avid storage on-prem, immediately that would look not that attractive to me. It's a no-brainer for your offline-online kind of workflows.
Can I ask a little novice question here? How does Avid Edit on Demand compare to previous versions of Media Composer that have been in the cloud?
To the casual observer looking over the shoulder of the editor, they could be forgiven for thinking they're running Media Composer properly, because the PC over IP desktop client, presents a completely full screen experience. So
Right.
once you're in, you
you're
might as
in.
well be in Media Composer.
Right.
Well, and our editors first knew that they were doing something remote, working with not the actual Media Composer sitting next to them, but they weren't actually aware that the storage wasn't connected on-prem then. But that was really the shocker, was the combining the storage and the actual edit system completely 100% in the cloud.
So the user experience is very, very similar to being at a post house then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, it's genre and editor specific. If you've got an absolutely fast editor that is used to doing an awful lot of tweaky audio type of work, scrubbing audio and really working with that, then, I think there's an element of lag that isn't the same. If you're actually, cutting something fairly sensibly editorially and not getting into those fine finishing points of sound, then it's quite hard to tell. It really is.
In an optimal environment, it's very close to the real thing. Rich, I'd like to ask you a question about the kind of, I don't know, the economics, I suppose, of it. I mean, just to pop back, Jake, and explain that at the moment, the way editor on demand is available is it's entirely standalone in the cloud. So what you can't currently do, although this may change, is bridge from your kind of real facility into the cloud and back again. So I think the idea of bursting, which I think was the initial attraction, or certainly for me, I imagined that being the first use case, which is, well, here I am with my on-premise Nexus and so on, and I'll buy a little bit of cloud editorial and storage when I need, to burst. That isn't how it's currently able to work. So you need a project that is capable of being self-contained editorially in the cloud.
The commercial challenge for me is where it fits in as a toolkit with the rest of the facility. It will certainly open up now the world of, I really want that talent. I've worked with this person, they're really great. Before, logistically, well, that wasn't really going to work, was it? Now, as a +1, yeah, we've got 4 editors working here on-prem. I really want that person or that person or that person as well, or working with it. I think that's what the new norm will be.
Do you think there'll be a kind of second phase where people go, right, okay, well, if this is how it's going to be, and it might be again, potentially, if we get out of lockdown and it kind of kicks off again, there may well be another lockdown, kind of end of the summer or whatever it might be. Do you see there being a kind of, a sequence of people reassessing how they're doing the remote and maybe going about it slightly differently, or augmenting, improving the cameras, sorting out the mics, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Is that a kind of an activity you see coming or not?
I certainly do, and I think it is. Whether this becomes the new norm, it'll certainly become an absolute thing that we will have to contingency plan for. Insurance companies and productions will lead this now, where there will have to be a plan for facilities in case something like this happens again. Therefore, we'll have to have something in place, and actually, that's where things like Avid editorial on demand and things could come into play as well.
Rich, can I ask what sort of content you're working on at the moment? Is it stuff that was shot before the pandemic, or is it stuff that's happening now?
It's material that we already had in, material that's still being sourced, high-end scripted, volume, daytime. It's all happening. One thing that's on the commercial side that's been quite interesting is most of the new commissions that are coming in, let's call them the COVID-19 commissions, where, right, some program isn't being made, we need something else, get the ideas in. They tend to be, and I'm seeing... I don't think the broadcasters are generally being brave enough to throw an awful lot of money at anything. So the commissions that we're seeing are low budget, whereas people are expecting to not pay an extra overhead for working remotely. So solutions around remote working that cost the same or less than is a very interesting commercial problem. As far as the productions are concerned, it's, we want to do the same as if we were with you for these deals, but everybody spread around everywhere. Please magically make that happen. Speed test, that's the biggest thing. If you've got crap internet, it points towards a different solution to if you've got great internet. And we are finding 50-50. 50% of the people working have great connections, fantastic. 50 have got really poor, and we're talking, 20 to sub 20 kind of download speeds.
Is it possible, with all the different speeds that you're talking about with your employees working with, is it possible to make it work in some way, shape or form, even with quite a slow speed broadband connection?
Yeah, we've basically got a sub 20, 20 plus, 50 plus. And with that just gives more opportunities of what you can do. We send out basically a questionnaire that the editors fill in. We give them a download. Download this, please. Tell us your internet speed. Tell us what screens you've got, what screen resolutions you've got, and what OSs you're running. And from that, it pretty much points to a solution.
The idea that you can give a fixed quote for something that works in the cloud. Have you found egress charges to be a challenge, or are they a fairly, are they a rounding error in essence compared to other costs?
Well, to be honest, it's quite similar to archiving conversations with clients at the moment. End of edits. Right, we finished your job. Great, thanks. Right, shall we just burn all this media and projects? Would you like it? Now, often a lot of clients will already, we've gone through this before. It's not a surprise.
Does anybody say yes?
Oh, yes, absolutely they do. Yeah, as long as I've got my, my
don't name any shows
files. Then. But you try to quote in. Of course, it's the same as ingress and outgress. It's we'll assume single cameras shooting 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for this at 50 megabits or 100 megabits equals X terabytes. We do all these calculations, and of course it's pretty much mirrored for the archive side.
What is the relationship between Jigsaw24 and Gorilla?
We use Jigsaw24 for our kind of standard Avid support, and of course buy-in tin. But I think it's it's the relationship with people about trying new things and coming up with solutions. That is why we have the relationship that we have.
Yeah, I think Gorilla have spent their entire careers on the cutting edge. We share a love of getting our hands dirty and finding out kind of how far our curiosity and bravery will take us. I think, and that's ultimately I think what kind of knits us all together.
Nice one.
Cheers, Jake.
Yeah, nice one.
Great.
Take care. And
thanks, Rich.
Look after yourselves next week.
Cheers, guys.
Jigsaw24 is our sponsor for this Broadcast Tech Talks podcast. Jigsaw24 provide technical support for audio and video workflows, including hardware, software, and infrastructure. If you want to partner with us on a future podcast, please get in touch with Broadcast Tech Magazine's Richard Hughes. You can find his details on broadcastnow.co.uk/tech talks.